Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today we are on to another of the fantastic companies that's made the listing of the most influential fintechs of 2021 in the Financial Technologist magazine. It is the LMAX Group. And today we're joined by Tim Turner, who is the Group CIO. Tim, how are you and welcome to the show?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Look, it's a company I've known for many years now. And one of the very first businesses actually who we worked with back in 2010 when we launched as a business. So I've seen the company grow massively, impressively, diversify, loads of great stories, which we'll come into a little bit more and as we crack on. But let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background, if you would, and what you do at LMAX Group.
Thanks. Yeah, so I like to think of myself as a modern CIO. I've been brought up through large-scale web infrastructure, companies that have used modern technology and techniques. And so that's kind of really given me a solid grounding, certainly at LMAX Group, where we rely on that kind of knowledge. So, what I do here really is I'm a seasoned change agent anyway. So through my career, I've transitioned from teams that are not maybe operationally mature, struggling in the technology space, and that experience is useful here because we like to change rapidly. It's part of our culture, it's part of our DNA. And we're strong on culture here. Some people like to use that as an excuse for not doing things properly, or a reason for lack of process. But here we that's one of our strengths. The talent as well. We don't just live culture and breed talent. David, our CEO, he'll be there at our weekly meetings, looking at our steering group, what products are happening. We're agile all the way through, and everyone's bought into that. So for us, that whole cultural and talent building is an enabler. So I'm strong on technology. I'm a technologist by trade, if you like, many years ago. My skills are now in PowerPoint and Excel rather than a command line, for sure.
Big skills to gain as well, though.
Yeah, for sure. And that helps because you can have different conversations. I can't keep up with all the tech, but I know enough to be dangerous, if you like. And kind of, the next challenge for us really is team scaling, which is kind of why we're here today, having a chat about this stuff as well. It's the reason we're there. So that's my focus at the moment.
And that's a sort of very interesting point you talk about that as well, because I, as I say, looked at it from the outside in and seen, LMAX grow from, in numerous different guises and be very agile about the way it's dealt with it. It's always had a real premium on talent and bringing great talent into that business. It comes from very interesting backgrounds, and it's diversified a lot over the years. So if we were to say who are the LMAX Group now, going back from when I first started joining it as the London Multi-Asset Exchange and talking to it as the London Multi-Asset Exchange, tell us a little bit more about this group and how the whole thing's functioning and put together.
Yeah, sure. So we see ourselves as the next generation of advanced exchange technology. We're no longer a fintech. We think that's a bit old school. We build and run low latency exchanges that are consistent, reliable for FX and crypto. This technology is proven and trusted in the marketplace, be that through large banks, hedge funds, high-frequency traders, and brokers alike. Just ask them. This isn't what we're spouting. They'll tell you the same. Founded in 2010, we've continued to grow. We strive for that open, transparent marketplace with fair, precise, and consistent execution. And you don't necessarily see this across all platforms, but that's what we're about at the heart of it.
And with regards to this sort of, as you say, move, I guess away from the classic of fintech, as you say, sort of more advanced than that. Give us a little bit more of an insight into what that means and what the sort of practicalities of that look like, because fintech's one of those words which means so many different things to so many different people, isn't it? And depending on where you're sat, it's either funky payment technology or it's capital markets and driving the new world of electronic trading, or it's it's got so many different guises. Tell us a little bit about where you fit into that ecosystem a little bit, I guess, and actually what stands you apart from the rest of that fintech crowd.
Yes, so that's a good question. I mean, from a crypto point of view, it's still an early market certainly as far as the banks are involved. David's been talking a lot about getting them on board with crypto, but we've seen massive growth in that over the last 12 months. And that technology is a bit different to the FX space, where it's a bit more ingrained into the culture. And I'm using culture there in the negative form that I mentioned earlier on, where we really part of our initial drive was to change that culture and provide an open and transparent marketplace where there's no last look. So that's a different area. We're still pushing in that direction, and certainly from a technology point of view, for us, it's the same core technology. So the crypto exchange, the FX exchange, they're built on the same proprietary software stack, low latency, etc. But the differences come at the other end when we're integrating with blockchain or we're providing custody solutions and that other aspect. So there's challenges for us really there about getting the banks involved, and we're pushing hard to make that happen on the crypto side. FX, we will just continue to do what we do. We're making roads in that area, and soon I'm sure everyone will come around to LMAX being the best place for that open and transparent platform.
And it's interesting you talk about the banks and their appetite to sort of move into that space, because there have been circling, and you mentioned there the last 12 months in particular for gains in the crypto world. They've been circling, from very publicly writing it off at various stages in the past. There's a little bit of humble pie being eaten, and the arms race sort of gearing up. Tell us a little bit about your position in that crypto world, because we've seen digital assets really explode over the last 12 months in particular, and I think from in numerous different hype curves, we've seen adoption look like it was going to become mainstream, then it still be something that was some way off, and now it seems to have really, pandemic or otherwise, really sort of captured the imagination and taken stock and created a sort of much more mainstream position as an asset class. Tell us a little bit about your story with it and how it came about.
It's a good question. So originally, customers demanded it from us. They demanded the trusted, secure, proven exchange technology that we have. And, these customers are investment banks, they're hedge funds, they're asset managers. An exchange to them that isn't reliable, consistent, and available is a problem. So, we took on that advice at the early outset, and I think from memory, it was 3 months from originally saying, right, we want to launch a crypto exchange. Our technology stack, it was actually turning things off, not adding things to it that allowed us to build that exchange. So really just the integration to the blockchain. I think we had 2 developers working on this, a pair for a few months, and we had that platform live. Now this is, a real strength of ours. We'll probably touch on this later, but it's about how we manage to build software, test it, and deploy it quickly in a reliable way. That's one of our key differentiators, and that's why we're number one in the crypto space and the institutional by volumes, because it's reliable.
Yeah, and that reliability is so important in a world that I guess is just gaining that sort of trust, with the space. And trust, I think, is an important word when you look at crypto in particular. That sort of piece is fundamental to setting you guys apart, and I guess that's the results which you're talking about there, which immediately show that. What else has been important with regards to, because you mentioned various different elements of technology there, and blockchain's one of the sort of mot de jour that's been sort of knocking around for a few years now, and again in different types of hype curve, it's sort of adopted to mainstream versus then falling back a little bit. Where are we at in that sort of race at the moment, and you guys in particular?
Well, for us, it's not really we're not looking at using the blockchain to streamline our recruitment process or any other wacky ideas that we can come up with. For us, it's really a way of confirming transactions and bringing currency into our exchange. Okay, it's not really there. We're not focusing our efforts on developing against a blockchain. We're there really to integrate with it. That's not to say later we might have some R&D work in that area, but certainly for us, that's where we see it. There's many changes due for the blockchain, so we have another one coming up in April for Ethereum. There's things we need to monitor because forks can cause problems in this area, as we all know. Well, those certainly in the crypto world would know.
Definitely,
it's really we monitor in that space.
And with regards to how it's been, there's been numerous challenges, as we know, over the course of the last year to 18 months or so. And I'm not just talking about the pandemic, which is sort of thrown light on it, but we've also been talking about Brexit and everything in between. Tell us a little bit about how 2020 was for LMAX and the business, because it seems on the outside that it's actually enabled the business to go from strength to strength.
Yeah, we stood up to the challenges of the pandemic. It caused a lot of problems in the world. We had a BCP plan already in place, and we've been testing that for the last 12 months, as many companies have. And that enabled us, really, some of that work that we'd done in the past that we thought boring at the time, and we did have a pandemic on our program. That enabled us just to work through this whole crisis. Crypto took off in H2. But this reminded us that, we really need to be ready to scale. So this is where, on the organisational side, we focused heavily. Interestingly, it kind of made us look around locally. So from a corporate responsibility point of view, Kensington and Chelsea suffers from one of the worst rates of kind of economic inequality. And it actually opened our eyes a bit to think, what can we do locally in the community? When we stumbled across the SPEAR programme, looks at the youngsters in the area, tries to get them into work. It's doing great bounds in that area, and we got involved, sponsored that. So we've actually, out of it, we've managed to get another pipeline for staff almost. We've got a couple of grads starting this year, so it's useful for us to in that way that we've managed to give a bit back to the community as well.
I think it's really important as well, isn't it? Because, sorry to interrupt there, because I think that one of the sort of underestimated impacts of the last year is many companies in the FS space have been able to post relatively robust performances, and indeed many on this show that I've spoken to have actually used it to fuel their business. So we're talking about 100%, 200, 300% growth, both in terms of revenue and headcount, have not been uncommon. But the difficulty of where that headcount has been, when we look at that, is generally at the sort of more experienced end. And the danger is a year or 2 years worth of gap of graduate talent coming into it and young talent coming into the industry, which is so important about where it goes. And to see you guys investing in that sort of area is really refreshing, I think.
Yeah, it's good, and I'm no spring chicken, so it's good to get some youngsters into the business. They bring fresh ideas. They bring different ways of working. I mentioned the grad program. We've also sponsored apprenticeships for the last 5 years. I think we've had one recently finish a degree. So that part as well is really important. So and part of the way we're going to grow is to embrace that younger talent as well.
And look, I know you're in the office today, and we're there, and we've seen sort of various challenges from a working perspective to it. As a tech business, I think sometimes it's a little easier to manage that, but as a financial business, there's also challenges that come alongside that as well. Tell us a little bit about how you've dealt. You mentioned culture earlier on, the importance of culture to the business. How have you managed that side of it?
So we struggled a bit because we're so used to being together. Daily stand-ups. You see those a lot around our office, even at the CXO level. David's in there with his directs having daily stand-ups, and we kind of struggled from that interaction. So that's where it's affected us in a negative way. But then, from a development point of view, in technology, working remotely, our developers tend to pair, and we've worked out a way that they can do that remotely. That's actually enabled us to actually broaden the kind of area that we recruit in. So now, whereas before we were limited to Kensington Borough area from a catchment point of view, looking wider now that we can hire globally.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So 2020, a robust period, and we've seen, as we say, diversification and opportunities within the business. Some great aspects to bring talent into the company as well. Talk to us. Let's look forward a little bit. Tell me what you're anticipating, what you're expecting. I think there's an overwhelming chord spring in the economy at the moment. People are looking, I guess, optimistically, positively at what lies ahead for us. There's an awful lot of opportunity that I think that will come out of that. I think digitalization has had its petrol poured on the bonfire, as to steal terminology used numerous times before. But we're looking at a phase now where I think there can be enormous innovation within this sector. And I know you as a group who are focused on innovation will be licking your lips at the potential of that sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about what 2021 looks like for you in the business.
Yes. So we've got too many great ideas and not enough people. So part of my role here is to make sure we have the right people in the right place. The boring stuff as well. Make sure the processes are there, ready to scale. Because if you don't have that sorted early on, you're going to struggle when you are scaling up. And then there's the technology piece on top of that. We've kind of got that area, I wouldn't say nailed, but the foundations are already there. So like I say, firstly, expanding our technology teams. So we're doing that globally now, as we've just said, and then kind of the doors have opened up to allow that. So we're recruiting hard. Now, the story around that recruitment as well is quite important for us. When you look at trying to sell ourselves against some of the bigger institutions, some of the bigger names out on the street, we're also competing. It's an interesting position we're in. We're competing with maybe Google, Facebook, the other hedge funds. It's quite a wide area. So how do we actually deal with that? I think there's important stories here that we need to get out. And actually, when developers apply for a role at LMAX Group, there's they'll get the whole pamphlet on what it's like to work here. So, we work collaboratively. Now, again, this is in small functional teams. There's good culture there. Pair programming, even remotely, as we've said, we've sorted that. So this enables us to put developers together along with testers, along with BAs. They embed into one functional team and they can deliver product really quickly. Now, delivering product really quickly is great, but how do you know that it's going to work? So we're test driven, and we have been for some time. Continuous delivery was pioneered at LMAX Group over 11 years ago now. And this is an enabler for our achievements. The fact that we have every half an hour we're committing code, we're running 35,000 tests against that. It means that we can go into the core of our system, make wide sweeping changes, and sit back and watch the results to see if it works or not. On top of that, we're dedicated to quality. So a large portion of the code base is rewritten every year. So while they're there, they're not just leaving it in the same state, they're constantly improving it. And that means that it's well modeled. It's leave it in a better state than you found it is kind of ingrained into their culture.
Absolutely.
And we have to care about latency. So currently we've got an 80 microsecond round trip time budget. We need to know if we're going to deviate from that, going back to the reliability, and not necessarily 80 microseconds most of the time and then it will spike. It's that consistency that's important. So performance testing is also embedded into that pipeline. So I've mentioned culture a few times, and we truly have a blameless culture here. So, we always look back on our successes, our failures. We're looking to improve. So it's that dedication to constantly improve is what I'm trying to sell to people that want to come and work at LMAX Group.
I think that's a really important aspect, isn't it? Because there's a lot of theories, I think, going on about what becomes attractive to people at the moment, and this is a very, very interesting period because, despite the sort of press headlines suggesting that there is, or I guess stating and showcasing there's mass unemployment in this sector, very fortunately, it's one where there is a massive and remains a massive skill shortage. So good talent, as you rightly say, is under pressure now. Traditionally, going back even when the group was founded 10 years or so ago, you're looking at that pressure and that competition generally coming from very specific, competitive businesses, predominantly within the FS space. Right now, that talent, as you say, has expanded, and it's not just your Googles and your Facebooks, but a whole raft of digital disruptors who are coming in there and providing very, very good alternatives for it. And I think that's sort of the thing that I spend a lot of time talking to businesses about is that employee value proposition for tech talent and what really makes a company stand out. And it's really encouraging to hear you there talking about, I think, the things that matter, which are the sort of the purpose and the quality and the improvement that people are talking about. Because when we're speaking particularly to developers and to tech talent, they're looking to do something which shifts the needle. They're looking to, I guess, really be involved in the purpose of that business, to change something, to be working on complex problems, and to be improving all the time. Kaizen's one of our values as a business, continuous improvement. And I think the businesses that are adapting to that and really looking at how they can see these sort of things become very, very attractive to those businesses. So I'm always interested in this, Tim, and it's putting you on the spot a little bit, so apologies in advance. But one of the things I've always asked, and this goes back to 21 years of doing this job, is when a company's there and they're talking about having a job opportunity and having someone there who's got maybe 2-3 different offers. Some of those might be 10%, 15% higher in terms of pay. That doesn't mean that they should go to the, very clearly to me, to the one that's paying 10 to 15% more than the other opportunity. But when you're there and when you're sat talking to these individuals and saying, this is why you should be joining LMAX at the moment, this is why it's such an exciting opportunity, what really leaps off the page and makes 2021 in particular, this the right business to be joining, and such a great opportunity, because you've got some great roles. You've always been brilliant at developing people's careers. It is a company there which is fantastic to work for. But I'd just love to hear it from you as to, as to why someone there who's got 2-3 other offers would choose LMAX, and why it's such a compelling opportunity for them at the moment. Why you're so passionate, I know, about working and having, and your story as well within the group. So about 15 questions for you to go to answer that.
Yeah, let me answer part one of that 15-part question. So, at LMAX Group, you'll have the opportunity to make a difference. There's a broad set of products that we develop here, and other developers may be out there writing code and not seeing it shipped. Whereas at LMAX Group, your code will not only be shipped, but it will make a difference, and you'll see it make a difference to the market, being number one in the crypto space, especially. So that's the opening gambit, if you like. And then secondly, you'll improve, because we've got some pretty smart people at work here with years of knowledge. Sometimes that may be a hindrance, okay? Looking at the old guys, but there's the younger talent as well. So it's what keeps me here, is that I learn something new every day. And the moment that stops, I should probably be having a word with David and say, I've stopped learning. Maybe we'll all be on the golf course at that point. But I think that's quite an important thing, is that especially if you're coming in at the junior level, there's so much to learn.
And I think that's always been one of those fundamental drivers to opportunity within it as well. And you mentioned there as well that sort of crypto space, I think, holds such a magnet to people at the moment. Where people are really keen to get involved in something new, something pioneering, something different. And for you guys to have stolen the lead on that, to be able to put yourself in that position, I think it's fantastic for people to be able to come in there and drive their business further forward. From a group perspective, talent seems to be very much at the top of the agenda for it. Is there anything else that we'll expect to see, and announcements for the year ahead that look exciting with LMAX?
Yeah, look, there's stuff we're planning for the second half of this year. We're expanding again globally. We're building out in teams in preparation for that out in Asia as well. So watch the headlines for that. We have a development team that's situated in New Zealand as well. So any budding developers in the New Zealand area looking for work, get in touch with us. careers@lmax.com. That's watch this space. Really, we're set to make a big difference this year and into 2022 as well.
New Zealand's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's been sort of I say relative. It's probably the poster child as a country for how it's dealt with the pandemic. Certainly from a numbers perspective, we'll see what happens to the economy with the way that they've dealt with it, and a different story. But how's that been with the business that's has its people now across the globe? Have you found different levels of impact or opportunity or conversation? What's as a CIO of an organisation with such different impact at such different times for all of your dispersed team, how's that worked?
Well, I think it goes back to the earlier subject we were talking about around distributing our staff for the BCP purposes. Okay, I mean, look, they've worked remotely since their inception at LMAX Group. New Zealand was probably formed 8 years ago. That entity, part of our organisation, so they're used to working at a distance. So through the whole shifting of government decisions during the pandemic, it didn't really impact us. We've also got offices in Singapore, in Hong Kong, so at different times, different governments are doing different things. And it's important that we supported our staff through that era, but then at the same time, we need to make sure that we continue to run a business, and we've done that successfully.
Fantastic. Well, Tim, listen, it's always good to hear what's happening with LMAX, and it seems that every time I speak to anyone in the business, it's doing new and innovative and exciting things, and I know it's been a fantastic place to work for many years. And if there's one challenge on your doorstep about bringing people into the business, then I know the company just gets better and better at selling itself and the opportunities that they're in. So it's wonderful to see a business that's thriving again through these times. I love the reinvention and the innovation that we're seeing throughout the business, and it's great to hear. For people who want to get involved and get in touch with you and sort of explore some of the things you've been speaking about today, what's the best way of them getting in touch with you?
So if you're looking for a job, head to the careers page, careers.lmax.com. by all means, hit me up on LinkedIn. There's a company LinkedIn page as well. Please feel free to go and look at that. We've got interesting videos that David's doing constantly. We are, as you mentioned earlier, we're actually trying to improve our tech PR, so there'll be more coming on that as well. So keep an eye on the company LinkedIn page.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Tim, it's been wonderful talking to you. Congratulations on everything over the course of it. Really, really excited to watch the continued evolution through 2021. And we'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thank you very much.